A couple weeks back, had an accident in my truck, messed Old Heavy and Heifer up. We took the motor out of Heifer, put it in Old Heavy, and as you figure, cart rolls Old Heavy.
He went from a roofer's kid in Memphis to one of the most controversial figures in street racing history. Prison, crashes, lawsuits, a ban that shook the entire drag racing world. J.J. DeBoss has lived 10 lives in one, and somehow he's still standing. But what's the real story behind the man, the legend, and all the chaos that follows him everywhere he goes? Stick around, because this one goes deep. The beginning, Memphis in his blood. Before the cameras, before the fame, before any of it, J.J. DeBoss was just Jonathan Day, born August 10, 1973, in Memphis, Tennessee. His family were roofers. That was the plan. Wake up, climb the scaffold, stack the shingles, go home. Repeat. And for a while, that's exactly what JJ did. But underneath all of that, something else was pulling at him. Cars, engines, speed. His father had raced on the streets of Memphis, and that bug bit JJ early. It wasn't a weekend hobby. It was an obsession. Every dollar he made from roofing went back into old cars, buying wrecks, fixing them up, learning the mechanics from the ground up, while other kids his age were spending their money elsewhere. By the time he was 16, he was already racing, illegally. No track, no rules, no safety crew. Just asphalt, adrenaline, and whatever car he could get his hands on. Memphis at night was his racetrack, and every run meant something because it did. Money changed hands. Reputations were built or broken on those streets. What set JJ apart even then was his mind. He didn't just show up and floor it. He studied every angle, developed tricks like leaving the start line on 2 instead of 3, shaving fractions off his reaction time when he couldn't afford to lose. Street racing wasn't just about the fastest car. It was about the sharpest mind. That Memphis grit is the foundation everything else is built on. The cars changed. The money changed. The audience changed. But JJ never fundamentally did. And that's both his greatest strength and, as you'll see, the source of just about every problem he's ever had. But if racing was his passion and his gift, why did it all come crashing down before it ever really took off? Prison, 8 years and 1 month. Let's not dance around it. J.J. DeBoss spent 8 years and 1 month in federal prison. That's not a minor legal hiccup. That's not a weekend in county. That's a significant, defining chunk of a man's life. Years he can never get back. Years that reshaped who he was and what he wanted. JJ has never been fully transparent about exactly what put him behind bars. The details have stayed largely off the record, whether that's by legal design, personal choice, or simply JJ being JJ, a man who controls his own narrative on his own terms. What we do know is that his early years in street racing existed deep in illegal territory. Underground races with serious money on the line, criminal smuggling of car parts, organizing and participating in prohibited racing events. The lifestyle he was living was always going to attract federal attention eventually. And here's the thing people sometimes forget about that era of street racing. It wasn't just fast cars and adrenaline. There was a criminal ecosystem around it. Betting, theft, fraud, violence. The streets of Memphis weren't a theme park. They were rough, and the people operating in that world weren't playing pretend. JJ was deep in it, and when the law finally caught up, the sentence reflected that. 8 years is a long time to think. Long enough to watch the world change without you. Long enough to miss birthdays, funerals, seasons, long enough to either break or rebuild. And to JJ's credit, whatever happened in that prison, whatever conversations he had with himself in those years, he came out the other side with something that looked a lot like clarity. He walked out and turned back to what he knew. Cars. No more underground dealings. No more illegal operations. Just the grind of buying beat-up vehicles, restoring them, and selling them for profit. He built a legitimate business out of his mechanical knowledge and his eye for a good deal. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't make headlines, but it was honest, and it kept him out of the system that had already taken years from him. That second chapter is what eventually put him on Discovery Channel's radar. A real street racer with a real story, a big personality, and a community of Memphis racers who were loyal to him in a way that couldn't be manufactured or scripted. So how does a man who spent nearly a decade behind bars end up with his own national TV show? Street Outlaws, Memphis and the Rise of JD's Empire. When Street Outlaws Memphis debuted on Discovery Channel, JJ DeBoss wasn't just a cast member, he was the show. The personality, the chaos, the family drama, the street smarts, it all radiated from him. Take JJ out of that show and you've got a completely different product, possibly a forgettable one. The family element wasn't a TV construct, it was real. JJ and his wife Trisha raced together, settled disputes together, and lived this entire lifestyle together. Trisha wasn't a supporting character, she was a serious racer in her own right. Together, they built a Memphis identity that stood apart from the Oklahoma crew on the original Street Outlaws. No polished builds, no corporate sponsors. Just old iron, real money on the line, and a team that ran like an extended family, with all the loyalty and dysfunction that comes with that. What kept people coming back episode after episode wasn't just the racing, it was JJ. Unpredictable in a way no writer's room could manufacture. He'd bet against his own team with total confidence. He'd call someone out mid-conversation without blinking. He wore his emotions completely on his sleeve. Love him or hate him, you could not take your eyes off him. The ratings told the story. Season after season, Memphis held its audience and built one of the most passionate fan bases in motorsports reality TV. People who didn't just watch, but showed up to live events and followed the cast like family. By the time America's List came around, JJ and Trisha were one of the most recognizable duos in the game. They weren't just TV characters anymore. They were a brand. And then, January 2022 arrived and changed everything. But just when it looked like JJ had finally built something untouchable, what happens when the one person at the center of it all nearly doesn't make it out alive? The crash that changed everything. This is the moment many fans point to as a turning point for JJ DeBoss. Not a controversy, not a legal issue, but a genuine, terrifying moment where the sport he loved nearly took everything from him in a single night. During filming of Episode 2 of Street Outlaws, America's List. In January 2022, JJ was behind the wheel of his car Hummingbird. Mid-race, the engine overheated. An oil line failed. The car caught fire. And in the chaos of that moment, JJ collided directly with Trisha's car, Zip Tie. Two cars, husband and wife, both on fire. JJ walked away with burns on his face and arms. Painful, but survivable. He's faced danger before and bounced back. That's what JJ does. Trisha was a different story. She needed emergency surgery. 2 screws were put into her hips. She suffered serious back injuries and spent months in a wheelchair. For a woman who had spent her entire adult life moving fast and making split-second decisions on the track, the recovery was its own kind of painful, beyond just the physical. It wasn't JJ's first serious accident either. Back in 2017, a crash involving his Sierra pickup and his beloved 1949 Chevy Old Heavy had put him through the ringer. He came back from that, rebuilt Old Heavy from scratch because the truck meant something personal to him. But the 2022 crash was different in kind. It wasn't just Jay getting hurt. It was Trisha. What did Jay do? He stayed. He showed up for her recovery the same way she had always shown up for him. That loyalty, through actual fire, is a side of JJ DeBoss his critics rarely acknowledge when they're tallying up his controversies. The crashes were brutal, but the battles JJ faced off the track, those might have been even more dangerous. Legal trouble, lawsuits, and accusations. The crashes aren't the only storms JJ has had to weather. Legal trouble has followed him at various points throughout his post-prison career, and some of it is serious enough that it can't be waved away as haters stirring up drama. In 2018, JJ found himself at the center of a significant assault accusation. A man named Chris Lynn came forward alleging that JJ had orchestrated a violent confrontation during a race event and filed a lawsuit seeking $5 million in compensation. The claim painted a picture of a deliberate, organized attack. Not a spontaneous argument that got out of hand, but something coordinated. JJ allegedly used his position and his crew to intimidate and mistreat someone during what should have been a racing event. But that wasn't the only legal battle hovering over his name. Separate accusations came from Chad and Jenny Larkin, also connected to a Street Outlaws taping in 2017. Chad claimed he was beaten on JJ's direct orders. Jenny alleged she was physically assaulted on set, grabbed and pulled to the ground by her hair. These were not minor allegations. What made these claims particularly damaging wasn't just what they said about JJ, it was what they implied about the show's production environment. Reports connected to the Larkin lawsuit alleged that producers had actually encouraged the confrontation for dramatic footage, that EMTs were reportedly refused access to the scene to prevent the cameras from being shut down. If true, that's not just a story about JJ DeBoss. That's a story about an entire production machine that was willing to let real people get hurt for content. Now, none of these cases resulted in publicly confirmed convictions or formal judgments against JJ. Legal proceedings in civil cases often settle quietly, or drag out, or get dismissed, and the absence of a conviction is not meaningless. JJ has never been found guilty of these allegations in a court of law. But the pattern they suggest, a world where violence and intimidation were tools, where the line between the show and real life blurred in harmful ways, has followed his reputation in ways that a press release can't fully address. What's interesting is that through all of it, the fan base largely held. People who loved JJ continued to love him. People who already had doubts about him pointed to the lawsuits as confirmation of what they always suspected. And JJ himself? He kept moving, kept racing, kept building. That's either admirable resilience or a concerning lack of accountability, depending on who you ask. You'd think after all of that legal heat, JJ would dial it back. So what on earth was he thinking in November 2023? The Darlington incident, the stunt that ended his event hosting career. If you thought the legal drama was the ceiling of JJ's controversies, November 2023 had a very different idea. At his own event, JJ's arm drop at Darlington Dragway in South Carolina, a fan named Randy ended up in the bed of JJ's truck, Old Heavy, while JJ launched down the drag strip and pulled a wheel stand. No harness, no safety restraint of any kind. Just a man in a helmet, holding on for his life, in the bed of a truck, doing a wheel stand at drag racing speeds. The front end of the truck came up off the ground. Randy held on. Footage of the stunt spread across social media immediately. The drag racing community reacted with a mix of disbelief, outrage, and dark humor. But the organizations responsible for safety at these events didn't find it funny at all. The World Drag Racing Association moved fast. They announced the revocation of their sanction from Darlington Dragway entirely. Not just from JJ's event, but from the track as a whole, citing safety and insurance violations. The message was blunt. What happened at that event was unacceptable under any circumstances, and they were not going to be associated with a venue where it occurred. Darlington Dragway followed with their own public statement. The language was diplomatic, but the meaning was clear. JJ DeBoss would no longer be welcome to host events at their facility. The track framed it as a mutual parting, wished JJ well in future endeavors, and firmly closed the door. When JJ responded publicly, the reaction was vintage JJ, no apology, no acknowledgement that a serious line had been crossed. His response was essentially, "I'm an outlaw. That's how we do it." He added a light-hearted warning to any fans thinking about jumping on the truck uninvited, but nothing that resembled genuine accountability for putting a person's life at risk on a racetrack in front of an audience. And here's the thing, that response is exactly on brand. JJ has never been a man who backs down or publicly admits fault. Whether that's genuine conviction or stubbornness is a debate his fans and critics have been having for years. But in this particular case, the consequences were real, regardless of how JJ chose to frame them. The Darlington ban effectively ended his run as a major event host in the sanctioned drag racing world. The stunt didn't just cost him one venue. It sent a message to every organized racing body about what a JJ DeBoss event might look like on the worst night. That's a stain that lingers, no matter how many apology-free press statements you give. Banned, controversial, and unapologetic. So why, after everything, does the street racing world still care about JJ DeBoss? Where things stand, what makes JJ still relevant? With all of it piled up in one place, prison, crashes, lawsuits, bans, controversies that would have ended most public careers, the logical question is, why is JJ DeBoss still a major figure in street racing? Why hasn't the weight of all this pulled him under? The answer is authenticity. And it sounds simple, but it's actually quite rare. JJ DeBoss is not a character a writer's room invented. He didn't come out of a casting process where someone decided that the show needed a loud, brash Southern street racer type. He was the real thing before the cameras arrived, and the cameras didn't change him. He didn't soften his edges for the audience. What you see from JJ is what he actually is, completely, sometimes frustratingly, sometimes admirably. Think about the full arc of this man's story. He grew up poor in Memphis, fell in love with racing, got swallowed by the criminal underworld around it, spent 8 years in federal prison, came back, rebuilt his life legitimately, found national fame, survived crashes that nearly took his wife, navigated lawsuits, got banned from venues, and through all of it, never once pretended to be something he wasn't. People keep watching because they believe the person they're seeing is real. And in a media landscape saturated with performance, that matters more than almost anything else. His flaws aren't hidden or edited around, they're front and center. And paradoxically, that honesty is what builds loyalty. Fans who've followed JJ since the early Memphis seasons aren't blind to his controversies. They know the record. They've seen the headlines. But they also know that what they're watching isn't a curated highlight reel. It's a real person navigating a real life, and that connection is genuinely hard to break. Trisha's recovery has also remained a consistent thread through JJ's public story since 2022. The two have stayed together, stayed public about the process, and remained a team in a way that feels earned rather than performed. JJ standing by Trisha through the hardest stretch of her life adds a layer to his story that pure controversy coverage tends to ignore. Street racing is changing. Safety standards are tightening. The outlaw era that built JJ's entire identity is closing. Whether he can adapt to a world moving around him or keep colliding with it the way he always has remains to be seen. But one thing his story makes absolutely clear: JJ DeBoss doesn't go quietly. He never has. Banned, controversial, and unapologetic. So why, after everything, does the street racing world still care about JJ DeBoss? That is the real, unfiltered story of JJ DeBoss. Not the highlight reel version, not the villain edit, not the hype machine. Just a man who has lived more life than most people could survive, and somehow keeps finding a way to keep going. Whether you're a longtime fan who's been watching since the first season of Memphis, or you're someone who just stumbled into this world, JJ's story is one of the most raw and complicated in all of motorsports. If you got something out of this video, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love this kind of content. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got more deep dives into the real stories behind the racers, the rivalries, and the moments that never made it to air. And drop a comment below. I want to know where you stand. Is JJ DeBoss a legend, a liability, or something in between? Let's talk about it down there.